Alright, welcome back, and now we're going to talk about interview questions.
Alright, so interview questions fall generally into one of 6 categories. And those categories are behavioral, pressure, questions about you, questions about your skills, questions about the company, and questions about your future. So let's take them one at a time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all.
Alright.
It's not like it's an interrogation or anything, just an interview.
But yeah, and I just want to say, while we're telling you this, if you're like, what do I need to know the difference between a behavioral question and an about you question? Is that so you understand the best way to approach it and answer it?
Right.
It'll save you time. So when you recognize, like, oh, this is a behavioral question, that means I can answer it this way.
Right. Okay, so let's start with behavioral, because that's number one. What is a behavioral question? How do we categorize that?
Well, the great thing about a behavioral question is that it gives you a chance to share an experience that you've had that helped you acquire a specific skill. So what they're looking for is they're evaluating whether you have the skill they want.
Okay, so let me give you an example. Can you tell me about an experience in your past in which you had to demonstrate conflict resolution skills? Now, before you answer, let's talk about
it's just personal or professional?
Good conflict resolution skills
Yeah.
and bad conflict resolution skills. All right, so we don't want to get into a personal story where you're at the bar and somebody starts hitting on your girlfriend, and you decided to resolve the conflict by pulling the bar stool out from under the. This is not what the employee is looking for. The employer is looking for. Okay.
Not the, I didn't like my former coworker, so I just didn't talk to her ever.
Right, right. So you need a positive example.
Yes.
All right, and we've all had conflict with a fellow employee. And some of them are very minor, like, maybe your employer, your coworker is always using your desk instead of their own desk, right?
Or wrapping you into doing interview presentations.
And sometimes they're big issues, right? Where they're delegating all their work to you, and you are having a hard time saying no, but you can't make the deadlines, right? So think about how you've positively handled one, right? Make sure then that you respond with the circumstances, positive. Make sure you're painting yourself in a positive light. Never say things like, well, there was this jerk I worked with once.
Yes.
The action you took and the result that happened, right? But always focus on the positive.
Yeah, definitely. Focus on the positive.
All right, so you want to talk about the second type?
Pressure.
Pressure.
Under pressure.
Awesome. The 80s music. Love it. We need that in the
So
background.
the pressure questions, what's the point of those?
They are evaluating how you react under pressure. And every job has stress. Some more than others, but every job has stress. So here's a funny instance for our interviewing. And I think this happened with you, is that, we showed up to interview, right? And we're, one of the parts of being an instructor is to do a teaching, right?
A test teach.
A test teach, yes. And so we had been sent software to use, right, to try out. You remember this?
Yeah, we never used it before, brand new.
And we practiced. I had my husband helping me.
Learn that software in and out.
In and out. And then I arrive at the interview, and they used a different software.
Different version.
A different version, same software, different version, older version.
Older version.
And
where all the buttons are different.
Exactly. It was a very stressful moment. And I think it was a test. I definitely think it was a test. So what will happen if the technology doesn't work for you?
Because when you teach online, you need to be flexible.
You need to be okay with the technology and the technology not doing what you expect it to do.
It happens at the most inconvenient time.
Oh, yes. So expect these kinds of questions. And sometimes they're subtle. Like for us, it wasn't until later that I realized that was really an interview question, wasn't it? Let's test what they do. I felt like a guinea pig a bit.
Well, I guess we did okay.
I think we did. So, what's the purpose of these pressure, or how do you respond? What's the best way?
Well, you want to demonstrate that you did everything possible to minimize drama in the situation, let's
Right.
say.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
So if I was answering, if I wanted to use that example, like I went to teach a lesson and the software was different than I practiced on, I would talk about how I just, took a deep breath and then approached it and kind of just did my best and didn't complain and didn't apologize over and over and just acted like, this is how it always is.
Right,
and if a button was the wrong button, just kind of moved on, didn't make a big joke or laugh of it. And
this is
no
not the
one was
moment
wiser.
to break down in tears
No.
and bawl, even if you felt like it at the
That
moment.
was after the interview.
All right, so let's move on to the third type of question, the about you question.
Yeah, and the thing about the about you question is the purpose is not so they can learn, what your favorite hobby is, or, if you've been married 35 years or stuff like that.
Right.
It's to assess if you fit the culture of the company.
I think that there is something to be aware of with about you. Legally,
Yeah.
there are things that an employer cannot ask you. They cannot ask you your age. They cannot ask you your marital status. They cannot ask you your sexual preference. And
They can't ask you if you have kids or want kids.
that's right. And so you have to be aware when answering about you questions how far you go with the answer and what information you reveal in it.
Yeah.
Right? Because they aren't asking you directly, how do you like to spend your free time? Well, my husband and I love to hike. You just told them you're married. They didn't have to ask you. What's the favorite vacation you've ever taken? Well, I took myself and my 12 children.
Yeah.
And you've just told them.
Yeah.
Okay? So be aware that these questions are sometimes designed, not always, but sometimes designed to draw out information that they're not necessarily allowed to ask you. But if you offer it,
Yeah.
there's,
And you got to think about how you can use your experiences to serve the position. So if I'm applying to a position, for example, when I applied to online teaching position, and she asked, what did I like to do, I talked about how I was a marathon runner because I knew marathon would mean that I, trained endurance and
perseverance, all kinds of things.
Work well under
right,
pressure.
right.
And so I chose things from my personal life that I felt like would fit in my professional life, and plus
Yes.
also teaching fitness classes and making those kind of cultural connections too.
Yes. So knowing that a particular employer, for instance, Brian, we have, a fitness program, so being people that are into fitness, that's a great match for.
Yeah, and the last place I taught for Teach for America, and when I did my interview for them, I talked a lot more about my experience with Habitat for Humanity and things in those culture. So, you have to think there's lots of you to share. Pick the thing that best relates it.
All right. So always be honest about your strengths, and positive. Again, always positive. Look at things in a positive light, and be concise. Don't tell long-winded stories about how you interviewed and threw your bracelet.
And you won't, because you will have practiced.
That's right. All right. So let's move on to the fourth type, the skill question.
All right. So when they're asking you skill questions, they're trying to understand how much experience you have with something. I.e., if they say, "Have you ever used Microsoft Word?"
Yes. The answer is not no.
They're asking you about Microsoft Word.
Right.
It's not.
And
right.
here's where honesty is very important. You don't want to exaggerate your skills.
Right.
But you also want to keep it in a very positive light. I have limited experience with Excel, or I've used Excel for these applications, and put a positive spin on it. I found it very easy to learn, so if you have applications that are outside of what I've used, I'm sure I'll be able to pick it up really quickly, right?
Yeah.
Put a positive spin on it, all right? And they're going to ask you these kinds of questions because they want to make sure that you know certain basic things that are essential for the job that you're applying for.
Yeah, so don't say, "No, I've never used Excel."
Right.
Talk about how, you're a quick learner. You can
Exactly.
adapt quickly. You're willing to learn it.
All right. Questions about the company.
Oh, do your research. But what they're assessing here is, are you going to be a good fit for the culture of the company?
Right.
And did you prepare for the interview?
Yeah. What do you know about this company? So why would you like to work for company X?
Yeah.
Not a good place to go because you posted a job.
I'm really broke at my student loans. Yeah.
No. Talk about their mission. Talk about why you're attracted to that company, and let them know that you're going to be a team player and that you believe in their mission.
Yes. If I say to you, why do you want to work for Bryan University? Do you have an answer?
Part of the mission here is to draw out the innate greatness in our students, and I believe in that. I believe in it very strongly. I think that everyone has the ability to succeed at their dreams, and I think Bryan has the programs to push people to do that. So it's
Look at that answer. Isn't that fantastic? Mission statement applied. Yeah, you don't have to hit every point of the mission statement, but if you talk about at least one part of it passionately, who's not going to want you?
That's right.
So be honest and stay positive.
And concise.
Yes.
Long-winded answers.
Oh, long-winded answers. People stop listening after 2 minutes.
And you start giving away things.
Yeah.
So, make sure that, you're not just babbling because you're nervous. All right? Say it, answer it, and let them come up with the next question.
All right. Our last one. Future question.
Future. So, here's something to think about. As an employer, they are looking at you and they're saying, okay, you're not applying for a seasonal position, so I'm going to spend X amount of dollars and hours training you and getting you to be the employee that I need. And I need to know that you're going to stick around. That doesn't mean 30 or 57 years, but more than 6 months.
It's expensive to hire people.
It is, and to train them. And
it takes people to hire people. It takes people to interview people.
Right.
People to train people. It takes you time to become, functional in the environment.
Right.
Productive.
Right. So these questions are designed to find out about longevity. So you never want to answer one of these questions with, well, I'm taking this job until something better comes along.
This is just my stepping stone.
Right. I see this as a dead-end position, so no.
I want your job.
Yeah, no, that's not a good answer either. So you definitely want to describe your long-term goals and make sure that they fit with the company.
Yeah. So a good example of that would be, since you know what the company is going to do and you know what your position is asking you to do, you can talk about how you want to build a certain knowledge about a certain, part of your position. You want to become proficient in this area, and then looking ahead in the future. What kind of things do you see in the horizon that might be important for your company to get, its foot in the door on?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so the vast majority of interview questions that you will encounter are going to fall into one of those 6 groups.
Behavioral.
Pressure. About you. Skill, company, and the future. And the overall, remember to be honest, remember to be concise, and always keep your responses positive.
Yes. And when answering a question, use the CAR approach. Talk about a circumstance, the action that occurred, and the results. Don't just say yes and no.
All right, well, let's move on to our next video, tips and tricks.